in my house anymore. She officially lives with her mom again, but I know she's also staying in a fair partner's house a lot. I'm not contacting her, so how do I know I'll get to that? My ex and me have a mutual friend, whatever, hanging out all together. But we do speak regularly. As far as I know, ex left me to be with you, former partner, and basically jumped straight into a new rebound relationship. I'm not sure what's going on with my ex, and at times it does seem she actually has lost her mind. I try to keep my mind away from her, but sometimes the mind wanders where it shouldn't go. Also, at this moment, I suppose I could call a fair partner by the name boyfriend because that's basically what he is now. However, I will stick to a fair partner because that's how it started anyway. About a fair partner ex-wife. Karma is a witch, and it's starting to hit hard when ex and a fair partner first got together 5 months ago. All seemed fine for them. However, tables are beginning to turn. A third partner is currently at home struggling with the depression, which I know for a fact because a mutual friend showed me screenshots of a conversation between ex-wife and her. Also, if her partner is currently out of a job, even when everything first happened with the cheating at all, I always felt better than a fair partner just because of his lack of morals, and I already had the belief he was worthless compared to me. Well, now I know for sure. Which once again makes me feel like my ex-wife has lost her mind. I'm not being arrogant, but I am absolutely sure that I am the catch in a way better man than her fair partner is a little extra at the start of the relationship. I was still contacting her in water. Well, I guess I was right all along. Not only does he prove himself to be the loser, I already kind of knew he was. He also brought something into her life that can devastate her. She's basically digging her own grave. The fair burger introduced her to hard drugs. I know this through the mutual friend. Haven't talked to ex-wife about it. If she wants to ruin her own life, that's her business, but it seems to be going downhill fast. As for my ex-wife, I am certain she is struggling and possibly even doubting her own choices. I hadn't spoken to her or seen her during the holidays, Christmas and New Year's. However, about 1 week into the new year 2023, she out of the blue texted me if I was home and if she could come over. She came over to my house and the visit was short, really only about 5 minutes. She came by to tell me she spent Christmas Day alone, sobbing. She wanted to know how my holidays had been, and she asked how I was doing. I told her my Christmas is okay, but not the greatest. I lost my mom last year and these were the first holidays without my mom. So of course it was just okay, but not all that great. I did tell her I was doing great, which I actually am. So, yeah, for me, this was weird. The only thing I can think about this whole visit and why would you care about how I'm doing is if you perhaps does have regrets. Time will tell. I also spoke to my ex. His mom, ex-mother-in-law called me after New Year's to wish me a happy new year and wish me all the best. I must admit I did not expect that call, but it was nice to hear from her because she was family for the last 8 years. Mother-in-law told my ex-wife hasn't been all that great lately. Apparently she is very sad and crying a lot. Mourning the marriage. Ex even said to mother-in-law, I wish it wouldn't have been like this. And once again, this implies to me that she is having second thoughts. However, only her ex has the power to reach out and make a move, which at this point I don't see happening anymore. The only power I really have is to give her the divorce she herself asked for and walk away and stay out of her life, which I did. And removing myself from her life, giving her the divorce and bettering myself every single day. Apologies for the long post, but I believe this is about everything I needed to get off my chest. 4 days from now, we're signing the divorce papers, and even though I'm really doing great, of course I'm still only human and from time to time still mourn our marriage and my ex-wife. I hate to see what has become of her, but I'm also fully aware that it is out of my control and absolutely not my problem. Let me end this by once again thanking everyone in the community. Many thanks. Without your help, I wouldn't have been where I am now, both mental and physical. Let's see what the community has to say about it. Diligent permission 3. As she tries to come crawling back, it would be strongly advised not to even entertain the possibility. You say if their partner introduced her to hard drugs, that's a huge deal breaker. Do you know exactly what kind of drugs they've been taking? If so, look up the effects of those drugs. Usually that's what's been taking both of them down a slippery slope. You said if their partner lost his job and has serious depression issues. Probably the adverse or reaction to those drugs. You say she stopped by to see how you were doing. Mother-in-law called, telling you how soon-to-be ex-wife is crying a lot. Doesn't sound good. Please sign the divorce papers. Make everything final before you do anything close to communicating with your ex. I wonder if she spent or messed up settlement money she got off the house. Sounds like karma is doing its job. In the meantime, you stay strong and stick to your goals and stay clean. Things will get better real soon. Remember, you're the better man in person. Okay? Rubix, F says your wife has no regrets. Selfish people never do. They merely blame others for their poor choices. As for her wanting to come by your place, she wanted to see if you had replaced her with another woman because you have been no contact. She wanted to observe you up close to gauge whether or not you will act as a safety net for her if she chooses to come back. If you are wise, you declined other visits from your soon-to-be ex-wife. You have nothing to gain by these interactions. In many cases, such meetings only serve to delay and set back a betrayed spouse's efforts to heal and move on. Also, they serve as an opportunity for your cheating ex to attempt to manipulate you and gain information she hopes to use to manipulate you more. The end of your marriage. But do it without the burden of further contact with your ex-wife. My wife and I have had a good marriage for 7 years. There have been no serious issues over the time we have been together. We have a 6-year-old son as well. My story begins one night when my wife goes out with her friends for a local winter celebration. That happens every year. It is very normal for us to socialize separately, and I was home with a kid. She came home at about 5 a.m., about a half hour before I had to leave for work. And this has been our agreement for a while. Generally, she stays out with her best friend Emma, and then sleeps or just sobers up as much as possible from his apartment before coming home. This has always been an option and she has exercised it a few times a year for the last few years. Our house is quite a drive from where they or I would go out for the night. All this was normal. I got up, I went to work and I came home. I asked her about her night and she told me all about it, all the people she saw and hung out with, her timeline, etc. Great. I'm glad she got home safe. I'm glad she had fun. We had previously been on vacation on a Southeast Asian resort and I had brought our little used tablet along on it. I had brought it to read on in lieu of an e-reader since I could also play a couple games on it. The night after she came home from going out, I opened it to continue a game I had begun to play on it. I opened the web browser first to check ESPN and it went directly to her Facebook messages page, which she had logged in to check on a friend who was house-sitting for us. We had had a limited internet package at the resort. This is where things took a weird turn. I could see she had messaged a new guy at work named Dale that she had mentioned a couple of times. The message. I had so much fun. I looked at it and couldn't help but to tap it. Here I discovered an alternate version of her night. There was nothing in the message immediately alarming in terms of assuming something specific happened. But wow, were they uncomfortable to read as her husband? Well, the issues in this moment are twofold. 1. I can't say she lied to me, but she misrepresented her night from their conversation. She quickly lost her long-term work friends except for Emma, and had spent the night at a second bar with Dale and a couple of Dale's friends. She didn't mention running into Dale to me, but he was a footnote from the messaging conversation. I can tell she basically spent the whole night with him and without the people she had highlighted for her tone. Every sentence had 3 exclamation points. She told him she had so much fun multiple times. She pushed the conversation when it stalled. He did begin it with a message at 2 a.m. after they separated about a girl that gave my wife a hard time about them hanging out. But when she woke up at 9:02, when I got home at 4 the next day, she pushed the entire conversation consistently. None of this is damning, but it got my attention and stayed in the back of my head for a couple of days. I kind of wish I left it there, but I didn't. 2 nights later, I did something I never even felt compelled to do. After she fell asleep, I grabbed her phone. I knew there wouldn't be anything with him since they were using Facebook, but I was curious about her text with Emma. I was nervous and didn't feel like I had a lot of time, so I jumped into her conversation with Emma the day after. At first there was nothing about Dale, but about how a different guy I had never heard of had treated Emma. But then, out of nowhere, I asked my wife the following. Do you think it will be awkward for you with Dale at work tomorrow? He is so touchy. Hello? My wife answered. I don't think it will be awkward, but it did message me in the middle of the night to apologize about that girl. They went back to talking about the guy giving Emma. Emma was married to someone else, by the way. No idea who this guy is. Before my wife texted Emma a picture of them and Dale with my wife in the middle face pressed against both of them and my wife, teasing Emma about looking like a different girl in the picture, a girl that had apparently slept with Dale. A fact that they had marked Dale with. Then my wife said, and I quote, I can't believe we got two guys to kiss. That was all of their conversation about him. But it was enough. Why would work with Dale be awkward? Why did my wife mention the message about the girl but not about the fact that she had continued to happily and excitedly push the conversation after that? What could have happened? Touchy, like he got upset about something. Or he was physically all over her. Did she push him away when he got too touchy? And that is why it is awkward. Then why push the conversation with him so hard the next day, whatever did happen? From how excitedly she was talking to him, she wasn't opposed to it. What then? I sat on this for a couple more days, alternating between trusting her and being uncomfortable. I decided I needed to know more and I grabbed her phone after she was out cold a few nights later to try to read more. First, I saw there was nothing more between her and Emmett about him so good. I scrolled up to about a month back in their convo and just started reading to make myself feel better, and it worked. Nothing bad about me and only two mentions of him. One when my wife hired him. And two that he had said at work that he felt that my wife and Emma were going out too early that night. Emma's follow-up was that people go out even earlier than we do. So it didn't seem like anything more than a comment about something someone at work said. Then I got back to the stuff I had read originally about their night out and I decided to read it again. It made me feel the same. But when I got to the end, I realized the last line about teasing Dale about the girl he had slept with was gone. Of all of it. Why do we need that? An accident is all I could figure on accident when deleting other texts. Earlier that day, I mentioned to my wife that a friend had seen her at a second bar. She had largely admitted from her story to me to gauge her reaction. She seemed alarmed, but I pretended I couldn't remember who saw her because no one did, and she dropped it very quickly. It occurred to me then that maybe the missing text I had read previously had been deleted in a purge of texts about my saying that I got on my mobile account to see what sort of log there was of texting. And I was shocked at what I had found. First, I realized I could see all of her messages up online. Just like that. Creepy. I could do this because her number was our primary account holder and the number either of us would use to pay the bill, check for upgrades or whatever. Second, I could see a text log. I can tell from referencing the text log to her messaging app, but she had indeed deleted 12 texts to and from Emma in the time I was worried about. I couldn't find any other texts that were deleted after an hour or so of cross-referencing. At this point I felt like I was going insane, but I figured I went this far so I might as well see it through. I logged back into her Facebook that very day. She had sent him a picture of her that she claimed was when she looked better at a much lighter weight. He said she looked better now and sent her a similar weight loss picture. They had chatted back and forth about that until I had come home. This was yesterday and this has been about a week. I am very torn on all of this because I still feel like I can trust her. But I also now fell down a bit of a rabbit hole. And I also know this is largely of my own decision making. I should have never looked at any of this, but I did. And here I am. I'm also afraid to confront her. I'm both afraid to have been way off base and destroying a good marriage. But I'm also afraid to alert her to my suspicion. If I did that, she could either end it without me ever knowing I was cheated on or continue to pursue it, aware that I am watching. I don't want her to have the upper hand if that is the case. But mostly I want you to tell me I am being stupid, so I will stop. We have the same friends so I can't really go to them. Read it. Talk some sense into me. Thanks. Deleting certain messages, but not all, looks incredibly guilty of what is the question. Something is going on. It could be as benign as her being more flirty than she would have been. Or maybe she's starting something up. What I want to know is if they went to run into Dale or they planned to meet him either as a group or they knew he was going somewhere and they weren't on purpose for him. Your choice is to walk around a nervous wreck or point blank. Ask her, sit her down and say, we need to talk about what really happened on day night, because I know you were at that bar and Dale was there, and to be honest, I'm very upset right now. All right, let's see how the update goes. It didn't last long. The next day after I posted this, my wife and I came home and began talking about work. She mentioned Dale staying too close after someone else had called out, and she was grateful she didn't have to do it. I took the opportunity to ask her about him. After a few late questions, I asked if he was gay, since he works in a traditionally feminine position. She said, no, he isn't gay. And then she hesitated and said, maybe a little bi. I asked why, and she said they got him to kiss another guy when they were out the night. All this started. I asked how she managed this, and she said by kissing Emma. I asked the following. So you kiss someone else for another man's pleasure? She was really caught off guard by the question and said she didn't think of it like that. That it was just something funny they got them to do. I asked, how would you feel if I did the same thing? And she said she saw my point. She pretty quickly conceded that it was not a good thing to do and asked if I was mad. I was already annoyed with her because she had leaked a work detail. I had told her accidentally to the wife of a coworker of mine that day and had got me in some minor hot water. So I just told her it wasn't the end of the world, but I wanted a little space right at the moment. She went into the bedroom and I got to watch. Something interesting happened. She simultaneously started messaging Dale and Emma, which I was able to watch on my computer to Emma. She was saying all the right things. He is right. That was stupid. I'd be pissed. We didn't think it through. I feel terrible, etc. She was having a pretty epic breakdown in those texts, and only one thing annoyed me. At one point I messaged she was glad no one took a picture or video, and my wife said something like, don't even say that. And then my wife immediately deleted those texts, which was both frustrating, reminder that she was deleting texts, and a confusing moment because I have no idea why she'd delete those two at all. I checked the logs later to confirm she had deleted them, and it wasn't a sync issue between apps. Dell's conversation was entirely work-related. In fact, it began with a 1-minute Facebook call from him and was her following up that he was able to get into a safe he needed to in order to close up. Then it veered into a conversation about how much he fit in, how much he preferred it to his other job, how much learning he had to do, etc. Nothing alarming. But she did end it by giving him her number so he didn't have to Facebook call her if she needed help. So to recap, I'm sitting in the other room really annoyed with her for kissing another girl for him. She is panicking to Emma about it in one message and in another. She's giving him her number at the exact same time, doing it. But this is what proved so frustrating about all of this. She wasn't wrong to give him her number so he didn't have to Facebook call her for work. Help? But could you have any worse timing? So I did what any mature adult would do. I ignored her except for when I had to interact for 2 days. On the third day of largely being ignored, she went from sad to angry. So I asked her why she was mad. She said she knew I had been reading her texts. I told her she had been acting really sketchy, and she pointed out that I got really upset the one time she did this. A seriously insane but unrelated incident. And I again just said she had been acting sketchy. She asked why. So I laid everything out about her texts and what was bothering me. She told me I was overreading it. That, yes, she had met Dale out and done the inappropriate kiss. But he was too drunk. Started being too touchy, so they left. I then asked why she spent the bulk of the next day messaging him about how much fun she had and other inane things. Sent him a weight loss picture of her dinner, her phone number, and generally pushed the conversations with him. She froze for a second and said she didn't know, and then said she messaged him so it wouldn't be awkward at work because of how she left so abruptly with Emma. She said they had just been talking about exercise at work. She sent him a picture of what she wanted to get back to. She's not big, by the way. She's pretty hot, actually. And then her dinner, because it was just a continuation of the conversation. And she also said she just gave him her number because of work. She also conceded very quickly that from my perspective, it all looked bad and that if the positions were reversed, she would be thinking the same exact thing of me. But she also stressed that I didn't see them at work. How she is always talking about me and our son. That she isn't attracted to him. She asked me repeatedly what she could do, but really, I don't know. I just wished I got to watch it play out longer. But she outsnooped me and figured out I had needed a code to get into her messages. But I told her it was to look at Verizon's new unlimited plans when I'd asked her for it. This tipped her off, and eventually she looked at my computer and found I was watching her messages. Now, this is a little alarming to me, too, actually, because I had never done as much as snoop prior to this. Why wouldn't she have taken my request with a code for what I was saying I was doing? Why was her guard up? She says she was suspicious. I looked in her phone when she was in the shower, so her guard was up from that. I can't remember if I did or what she was referring to, but I feel like that probably happened. She also explained away the text deletions by saying they were all talking to Emma about how she thought maybe I was looking at her texts. I don't know. This isn't strictly true because I saw her delete the weird glad no one took a pic texts, but it is plausible enough. She kept asking me what she could do and eventually deleted her messenger. But I told her that was pointless since she'd find a way and had given him her number anyway. She told me to talk to him, to talk to Emma, but I said talking to him was just weird because I didn't believe he did anything wrong and it would make her life weird and that Emma would just tell me whatever my wife wanted her to tell anyway. So she kept stressing that she didn't do anything. I didn't know about that. Yes, it looked bad that she would do anything to fix it and that there was nothing there. She told me to keep watching her stuff. Then it was fine. She understood, etc. It left me in a weird spot. I feel like I have a fair amount of evidence that something was starting, and I do believe in my gut. She likes him. I even told her that if I was him and having a girl message me like that, I would think she was a sure thing. But yet all her explanations are plausible, and I am completely certain nothing happened based on timelines I was able to clearly establish. I do feel she violated our trust, but I also know nothing more will come of it now unless it does, in which case she would just find new ways to hide it. For her part, she is able to explain about everything pretty logically. Completely admit it looks wrong, but largely call it all the two incidents. After a couple more days of anger, I relented and said I would drop it. I have but figured I'd leave this update. It isn't enough to end a good marriage, but it does feel weirdly and resolved to not get to know that I get caught catching her or the sum less than its parts in this case. From what I'm reading, your conversation with your wife seems to be about each other pointing fingers at each other. Totally called for and totally justifiable. However, this kind of conversation will get you guys nowhere and will never resolve the elephant in the room. Broken trust. In order for you guys to be better at your relationship, trust-wise, I suggest you start talking about your feelings and not about excuses. Sit down with her and tell her how you feel about everything. And then to bring it closer to home, just ask her, how would you feel if I did exactly the same thing as you did? From there, you just shut up and listen to her whole story. Rebuilding trust is something both of you have to do together. Work out a plan together. Think about what feelings are lacking from both sides. Good luck to you. Hope things work out. All right. Next up, a husband, 31 male of 12 years cheated on me. 30 female. For years, my husband and I have been together since we were 14 years old. And we know each other since my birth. We practically did everything together and were always there for each other all the time. There isn't a single issue that we haven't overcome together. Yesterday, he confessed he was cheating on me with another woman. It was after we finished making love. He told me that they had been together for a long time and have kids together. Less than me and him, but still kids. He told me that he loves me and understands that if I wanted to divorce because he betrayed my trust before, he could say anything else. I told him to get out. I yelled and screamed at him to get out, but stopped when our baby in the same room as us started crying. I told him he needed to leave for the night and not come back until I said so. He left. I don't know where he is, but I received lots of texts of him wanting to talk this over and see if we can find a solution together. I am so angry, confused right now. All I want is my husband back, my best friend. But I also feel betrayed. All the trust we worked up over the years, gone. I have 4 kids with this man. What do I do? One of the foul realities of the legal system in many countries, including the US, is that the person that goes for child support and maintenance first gets a bigger piece of the pie. He has also most likely been using marital assets to support these people. Because of this, You need to get a family law attorney today. Use a credit card if you must. Don't wait on any of these things because you must protect your assets for your children. Take half the money in joint accounts and put them in an individual account at another bank. Take his name off of joint credit cards or close them down. Freeze your credit. Don't tell him you're doing these things. From now on, his attorney. Talk to your attorney. Only communicate with him via text or email about the children. Screenshot every communication. Tell everyone after you've done the above. Your family, his family, friends, everyone. You need the emotional support of sympathetic people, and there is nothing you should be ashamed of. Consider going to websites with forums such as Chumplady or survivinginfidelity.com. They have a host of information and emotional support. So late 2016, I discovered my now ex-wife was cheating on me. As you can imagine, I was destroyed mentally, and I felt like my life was spinning out of control. We had been through a lot together, so this really hurt. After the admission that she had cheated, we both figured seeing a professional would help and maybe we could make it work. Fast forward a month. I find a journal she had been keeping, detailing everything. This was a second hard-hitting blow to my mental well-being. After reading some pages, I learned she's still cheating. This is my breaking point. I can't even look at her. I've stuck with her through drug addiction, a miscarriage, and a workplace injury that left her unable to hold a job. The injury is what led to her painful addiction. I thought she had kicked. I was wrong. I was in total shock and revenge mode. I was going to destroy her. Day 1. I go to the county courthouse and retrieve a divorce packet containing what papers and documents one would need to file without a lawyer. I also make an appointment with a high-profile divorce lawyer in my state. The only downside was my soon-to-be lawyer was across the state, roughly 6 hours away. So I had to take some time off work and meet with her ASAP. Day 2, after evil wife leaves for a bit to go to the store, I locate her journal and proceed to take very good pics of every page. I also decide to go through a few other things like finding her pill stash, and I kid you not found a line of crushed pills on one of our glass drink coasters. I was livid at the sight of this and take pics of it as well. After she returns home, I tell her I'm leaving for the city for the night and I'd be home the next day. At this point, she still believes I know nothing and I'm still trying to work things out. Day 3, I meet with the mastermind of a lawyer. She was a true shark. I explained everything to her, gave her copies of every photo, the texts of my evil wife admitting to cheating. Any type of dirt I had was laid out on a silver platter for this shark to salivate over. Shark lawyer asked me if I have any laundry to air. I told her no and told her everything I'd been through. I was damn near untouchable when it came to my image as a good husband. Shark lawyer was pleased and said she would be happy to take my case and jokingly said, "This is going to be an easy payday." We settled on a flat fee of $4,000 since she was so sure the case would be a slam dunk, warning me, though, if my evil wife was dumb enough to take the divorce to trial, my fees may go up, but not to worry about that. We drafted a very one-sided divorce decree, one where my evil wife would waive all claims to my $401K over $200,000 at the time. She waived all claims to my truck, currently in both our names, and finally dividing up the debt, leaving me to pay only my personal credit card and utilities that were in my name, and any debt in my evil wife's name was hers and hers alone. With the documents in hand, I made the long drive back home and began to set the wheels in motion. My evil wife is served the following day and she moves out that night, trashing the house at the same time, I assume, to stay with whatever posse she was sleeping with. 2 months later, our divorce is finalized. I then contact every pharmacy doctor and physical therapist she used to inform them of her drug abuse. Along with pictures, I contact her new employer and hint that they may want to have her tested. This was her first job in 5 years since I wasn't there to support her. She's later blacklisted from the doctor pharmacy and fired from her job. On top of all that, I started seeing her best friend for casual cheating. Turns out she loved rubbing it in evil wife's face that she was having relations with me. To this day, my evil wife has never recovered, holds a minimum wage job at a slum bar, and is still on the peels. I've recently learned her boyfriend is currently cheating on her and I love it. This woman wasted 8 years in total of my life and I've enjoyed watching her suffer. You played this perfectly and I'm so happy for you. I know it was hard at the beginning, but you definitely did the right decision. And karma had her hard. Well played. It must feel great to come out of it all 100,000 times better than she did. The imagery of her now getting cheated on by the guy she cheated with is pretty hilarious to me. That was a major 8-year-long lesson learned. All right. Next up, don't announce your engagement at someone else's wedding, or this might just happen to you. Last summer, I was at a cousin's wedding. His bride and her family had been close with our since before I was born, and the couple had known each other since they were toddlers. So it was a particularly exciting event for both sides of the family. However, after the ceremony was over and the party had only just started, one of the bridesmaids decided to announce her own engagement. The attention was immediately taken away from the newlyweds and brought to the bridesmaid, who I'll call Sarah, and her equally smug fiancé. My cousin's wife, I'll call her. Emma didn't make a scene or utter a single negative word about Sarah. She looked like she was on the verge of tears, but she kept grinning and acted very happy for the other couple. This was unusual, as Emma is typically quite confrontational and speaks her mind no matter the consequences. Sarah later picked Emma to be the maid of honor at her own wedding, which took place last weekend. I wasn't there for it, but my cousin sent me some of the best bits on Snapchat and explained the whole situation. This is where the fun begins. Emma's two much younger sisters were the flower girls at Sarah's wedding. At the very last moment, Emma switched out the white petals in their baskets to blue ones she had secretly brought with her. She told her sisters not to say anything about it or let the bride see them until it was time to scatter them down the aisle. Sarah looked very confused upon seeing the blue petals, which didn't coordinate whatsoever with her theme. But of course she didn't say anything about it at the moment. Most of Sarah's other bridesmaids were also Emma's friends, had attended Emma's wedding, and were in on Emma's scheme at the reception. Emma, sisters, and the other bridesmaids were tight-lipped when Sarah began demanding to know why there were blue petals. The wedding planner ended up getting a lot of reviews for not checking the flower girls' baskets before they walked down the aisle. Finally, it was time for the speeches. The speeches took place in front of a massive screen, displaying a loop of photos with Sarah and her husband, which had been compiled by Emma. Emma took the remote, controlled the presentation screen, and at first she showed some pre-approved, humorous photos of Sarah with Emma and other friends to facilitate a couple of light-hearted jokes. Then at the very end, Emma said to Sarah that she must be wondering why there were some blue petals instead of the white ones originally planned. That was when Emma displayed the last slide of her presentation. Emma announced in front of everyone that she was 5 months pregnant and that she just discovered the baby was a boy. Hence the blue petals. The last slide, her ultrasound picture. There were shocked yells and gasps. Sarah had a fit, but those involved in this scheme cheered so loudly that I sincerely regret watching the Snapchat recordings with headphones. Apparently, Sarah had been very nasty to her bridesmaids before, driving several of them away and forcing the others to pay ridiculous amounts of money for dresses. Emma and my cousin were eventually thrown out of the party, but they were all smiles. Sarah's fuming mother went to confront her outside and Emma retorted with gentle, "I'm pregnant." I reckon Sarah doesn't speak to the majority of those bridesmaids anymore. I love that you were able to plan and execute this perfectly. It was definitely well-deserved. Revenge. Never steal the spotlight at a wedding that's only supposed to be about the couple getting married. They spent a lot of money for the big day, and her doing this definitely derails the moment. Ruins the memories and will turn everyone against her, although it should have been easy enough to simply kick them out immediately and carry on with after the party. This was definitely a more entertaining outcome. I'm glad it worked so well. In the end, married 33 years. D-Day, 3 days ago, married for 33 years. Me, Mullah 35, wife 55, 2 kids, 2 grandkids, and we love them dearly. Background. We met at a nightclub back in the 80s where I was working as a bouncer. Went out for a date and 2 months later moved in together. 2 years later, married. We had a good life, work, play, having children. I went from a very active job to a steady job and put on a lot of weight, to the extent that I couldn't even finish sex as I would get asthma attacks. We tried different things to spice up our sex life and were always monogamous. I had been cheated on in the past, so infidelity was a red line that my wife and I never crossed. We loved each other and thought we would die together. 33 years married is a long time, but I loved her more after every year that passed. After 20 years of a dead bedroom, I made a decision to lose the weight. So after 2 years, I lost 80 kilograms, about 176 pounds, and had a tummy tuck. I know it sounds vain, but there were three main reasons. One was so I could see my grandkids grow up to my health, obviously. And three, to rekindle our sex life. And it did. For the last 2 years, we had sex about 3 or 4 times a week, and my wife enjoyed every second of it. I knew this because her body doesn't lie. So we were in a position where we can enjoy our lives with each other. And she still says she is in love with me and I love her. I have never cheated on her. I don't know. She had never cheated on me. It's just one of those things. Well, that was until 3 days ago. She went on a holiday with her two sisters, headed off interstate with them. I had no problem with this as I trusted her, but she knew that cheating was a deal breaker with us. And even after 33 years, it still is. We had a relationship where nothing was hidden. We had apps on our phones where we could see each other's whereabouts. This had nothing to do with a lack of trust. Just simple safety. No phones were hidden and we were both had access to our messages and emails. Trust was never an issue. When I lost my weight and started to look better, I did gain more attention from women. But I always brushed it off as I was happily married. My wife would comment that she felt a little insecure now that I was being found attractive by others and she had put some weight on this. Never worried me as I love her no matter what she looks like. I tell her daily I love her and how beautiful she is. Our sex is amazing and I'm regretful. We didn't try hard enough early on. Anyway, I had just finished work and was heading home when I got a phone call from my wife. She was very upset and asked me if my sister-in-law had spoken to me. I said no. Why? I asked what was wrong, never thinking that I would hear what she was about to say. She told me she cheated and had sex with another man. She's so sorry. She didn't know what came over. I was shocked. My heart just broke. I sat in my car, numb, while she continued. She said her sisters and her were having a few drinks and a married couple joined them. They drank until 2 a.m. and her sisters had already left to go back to their room. The bar closed and she told me that she was very drunk and went with the couple to their room to keep drinking and talking. They both were very complimentary and kept telling my wife how sexy she was. And her husband was a lucky man. The man then started to touch her and the wife encouraged them both. They told her no one would know and to just enjoy it. She said she felt that it wasn't even her, but she had sex with the husband while the wife watched in the morning. When she woke up, she was in bed with both of them asleep and ran back to her room. Her sister caught her and she told her everything. Her sister told her she had to tell me or she would. She told me all this while sobbing over the phone and begging for my forgiveness. I was just numb. How could you just throw away our lives? She was crying and kept saying, she is so sorry and she hates herself, how much she loves me and made a terrible mistake. I told her she didn't make a mistake. She made her decision. I then hung up on her and turned off my phone. I went home and just sat in a chair trying to work out what is going to happen now. I cried over the loss of my wife as I knew her and the years we had together. I cried over the loss of our future together and the effect her decision will have on our family. My life as I knew it was over. I shut myself off for the last 2 days and then turned my phone back on. Needless to say, there were hundreds of messages from her and her sisters. The last one was she is on her way home. My kids have also tried to contact me as their mother was ringing them to see if I was all right and if they had heard from me. I rang my kids and told them what happened, that I am as okay as can be expected, but I will be leaving home to go sort myself out before she gets home. I asked them not to tell her where I am going, but I need to come to grips with the end of my marriage. I have just sent a text to my soon-to-be ex-wife telling her we are getting a divorce and I don't want to hear from her. I don't care about the details and I now don't care about her. The pain is incredible. I would never have thought that our love could have been destroyed so quickly. Let's get a quick community reaction. Pat Jacob says, I sincerely doubt that this was the first time she stepped out. You don't go from 33 years of faithfulness to a threesome after one night of too many shots in a bar. You only got the tearful confession because she thought the sister-in-law had ratted her out already. Don't listen to other posters shilling for reconciliation. I guarantee you, those 20 years of the dead bedroom was one-sided. This is totally devastating, OP. I'm sorry this happened to you. It seems like she totally gave in and caved to those temptations, despite her feelings of insecurities. And perhaps, maybe those insecurities are what led to this incredibly momentous decision. You had made a responsible decision to really work on yourself and be the best version of you in order to rekindle your intimate relationship with your wife and be healthier for the sake of your grandkids. You really turned your life around. And then she does this. I'm sorry. I truly hope that this is a singular event and that she didn't choose to hurt you in the past. Update: I may ramble a bit, but I have a lot going through my mind and it keeps jumping from one thing to another. Couple of clarifications. A dead bedroom wasn't completely dead, but compared to the last 2 years, it seems though, the actual job I had was in the military and I got injured in a training exercise which led to a desk job, then medical discharge. And then my wife and I bought a small business together. Now, before I spoke to my wife, I had spoken at length to my sister-in-law and her husband. The story my wife gave was certainly different to the one she gave me when she first confessed. My kids were horrified about what happened and just want to support me. I have explained to them that though they may be angry with their mother, she is still their mother and the grandmother of their kids. She loves them. And what she did to our marriage does not change that. My wife and her sisters did cut the holidays short and come home. I left a note for my wife, telling her to pack and go stay at her mother's. She did this. The details of how it went down are much worse than what my wife told me. Though she confessed, under the threat of being exposed, she didn't tell the truth. No surprise there. My wife broke down to her sister and apparently told her everything. I won't know what to believe until I sit down with my wife. The story she told her sister went like this. She loves me and loves her marriage. She never expected to do this. She blames our active sex life. We have had over the last 2 years to explore what else she had been missing. She felt this way because she was always the attractive one in the relationship. But now she believes the roles are reversed. She was insecure and needed to be wanted by someone else. She swears it was the first time, but she did plan it. It was a fantasy she acted on. She was scratching an itch and was never going to tell me. Unbeknownst to her sisters, the couple she met, there were interstate customers of ours. I haven't met them, but my wife spoke with them all the time over the phone. My wife went for drinks to meet up with them, but her sisters tagged along, so they pretended to be strangers until they left. She did drink, but was not falling down drunk. All three had this plan before they went away. My wife is coming around this afternoon to talk. Apparently, she is beside herself to what will happen. I already know what I will do. She chose to cheat, but everyone will feel the repercussions of it. Already the truth about her cheating, though, makes it more devastating to me. Makes my resolve stronger. I didn't cheat. I didn't force her to lie. Her feelings that she has lost me and her marriage are spot on. And I don't give a crap how miserable she is. She did this, no one else. But we will now all have to deal with it. We're over and we will navigate our changed lives. The community has some additional farts. Scary. Inspector 8315 says she indeed made a choice. Let her live with that choice for the rest of her life. Abel Dress 1687 chimes in. It sounds to me like your wife always looked down on you a bit. This is clear with her feeling. She was the attractive one. Once she felt the self-imposed superiority slipping away in her own mind, she had to get one over on you. She would have kept the secret and used it to reinforce her feeling of superiority. It boils down to the fact your wife doesn't respect you. She probably has a history of trying to one-up you even behind your back, all to build her need to feel superior. Wow, that's a new low. Update. Firstly, thank you to those 99% that showed support. It's really helping. For those others that blamed me, I have no doubt that you have your own issues to deal with and good luck with that. This is a long post. As once I started to type, I couldn't stop. It felt good to get it down in print, so to speak. It was a little cathartic. This will be my last update for a while. And for those interested in what happens, I will post in a few months' time to let you know how things are going. I had a talk with my wife yesterday. After so many years together, we both find that we don't sleep very well without the other beside us. It's been like 4 decades. Well, Last night was the first night that I had a very good night's sleep without her there. She came around home and walked through the door. She looked terrible, lack of sleep, guilty, scared and red-eyed. Normally my heart would break and I would make her feel better. Not this time. I was sitting at the table and she started to cry again and rushed in for a hug, blubbering. She left up and so sorry, etc. I put my hand up and told her not to touch me and sit down. She sat down. I asked if she wanted a coffee as I was going to make one, and she accepted. So I made the coffee and went back to the table. Her eyes never left me. She started to speak, but I told her to be quiet and answer my questions and listen. This isn't about her but me and the marriage. I told her at this point we were done. She had made her choice. And this is about making mine. I had already made my choice, but I wanted to get some semblance of truth out of her. And I thought if she thought she had a chance, she would be at least a little honest. I told her I have spoken with her sister, which was true, and I had spoken with a couple, which wasn't true. But she didn't know that I had the strangest feeling inside of me, happy that she was so upset, but sad for us at the same time, along with disappointment, anger, and all the normal emotions you would have. But I was calm and this freaked her out the most. Honestly, I felt I was doing a job interview. I asked her how many times she said physically, once and twice on video chat. I told her to explain how it happened. She told me that when they were talking business, it turned to flirting. Then when the wife said it was okay and got involved over a couple of months and moved on to watching them have sex, she told them it has always been a fantasy of hers to have sex while the wife watched and they were all for it. She was crying when she told me this and said it went too far. She knew it was dangerous, which made it more exciting for her. She started to tell me that she felt insecure, but before she could continue, I told her, I don't want to hear that BS, excuses and justifications. I had to wait about 5 minutes until she could pull herself together. I even got up and got her tissues. She said they met up as arranged, and after her sisters had left the bar, they went straight to the couple's room. I asked her if she ever intended to tell me and she said no. It was just a fantasy that she thought she could fulfill and never think about cheating again. I called BS and asked if she had cheated over the last 33 years. She said never. I told her that now it didn't matter how many times she cheated, either once or 1,000 times, the result would still be the same. The only one it will hurt if she is lying is our kids and her relationship with them and her grandkids. I told her I don't believe her, but at this point it's irrelevant. At this she started to realize I had no intention of working through her infidelity. She begged me to work on her marriage. She would do anything. I could do anything. She would let me have affairs if I stayed. She promised she would never cheat again. I told her to listen to what she was saying. She has degraded herself enough. I would never cheat at a marriage. And if I did sleep with another woman, it would mean we were separated with no chance of reconciliation. This is the last thing on my mind. She reached over to try and grab my hand, but I told her that I will never touch her again. It's not that I am judgmental of anyone's lifestyle. It's their own business. And I understand people do have affairs, open marriages, etc. But the point is, we didn't. The trust and respect were destroyed when she planned to have another man inside of her. I have always been a pragmatic man and I just felt relief. I told her, we will make this as easy on us as we can. She took this as hope for a relationship, but I told her, no, we're done. I will never touch you again, and I meant it. I could never forget that she screwed another man. And the woman I loved and married is now dead to me. She died when you not only got screwed by another man, but planned for it. All the good memories we have will remain. The holidays building our first home together. Having and bringing up our children. All the laughs in life we face together are just that, memories. We're not going to have two separate lives. And I, for one, am looking forward to seeing what happens. And they will not include you. When I do meet another woman, I hope to start new memories with her and hope that I do find love again. She was shaking and crying when I told her this, but it didn't faze me. I just wanted this woman out of my house. She couldn't continue at the talk, so I went down to shed and reached out to my kids by phone while she composed herself. I told them what was happening and they were very supportive and said to not drag it on and just finish it. I went back up and as soon as I walked through the door, she started again with the story and we can make this work. I sat down and said, We're going to sell the house and business and split everything 5,050. You can have the car and I will take the truck and my motorcycle. She can take the cats. I then told her not to ring me, text me or contact me in any way unless it's about our kids or the grandkids. I will contact the lawyers and start the ball rolling for the divorce, and she is free to go screw anyone she wants as she is now a free woman. She told me that she didn't want to screw anyone else and I was being deliberately mean and unemotional. I told her that I was being honest and her actions had put me in an emotional void. I told her that she is the only one to blame for the destruction of our marriage and no one else. I loved her unconditionally, and she is the one who screwed it up. I then left the house so she could sort herself out and take a few more things with her and went over to my daughter's. I stayed there for a few hours talking with her and played with my granddaughter. When I got home, she had left and, as I said, had the best night's sleep without her I have ever had. Now, to see what happens over the next 6 months or so with one quick comment from Fragrance Spray. She was upset that you weren't emotional because her plan was to use emotions to manipulate you. This wasn't a mistake, an accident, or a result of your behavior. It was an intentional decision to put your marriage at risk to get what she wants. Also, I'm very skeptical that the one and only time she physically stepped out, she got caught by her own admission. She was never going to tell you. So she had every intention of keeping the option open to do something like this again. You were absolutely doing the right thing. She can talk to your lawyer, and you shouldn't even need too much contact for adult children. Record all interactions with her if you can. Eventually, she's going to move on to making stuff up about you and try to paint you as the bad guy in all of this. You definitely aren't wrong, OP. She is to blame entirely. I feel like she could have even spoken to you about her fantasies. And I don't know. Perhaps I could have opened some doors intimately for both of you to explore more of your relationship and your sexuality. Definitely not saying that you could have involved other couples, but the willingness to discuss your fantasies with each other might have brought you closer. I'm sorry, Opie, I'm sorry. She totally bulldozed your life together. Update: thank you to all the messages and responses. It has helped me maintain my focus. Well, it's been 5 hectic weeks since the soon-to-be ex-wife threw away our marriage. I've had a lot of time to reflect on my decision. I still believe I made the right one. I could never trust her again. I could never touch her again. Seriously, it makes me sick to even think about it. It was her decision to cheat and destroy our marriage for no other reason than she thought she could get away with it. She's still staying with her mother. And I had been getting the house ready for sale. We had been in this house for 20 years, so a lot of crap needed to be done and cleared out. But I did it and we put it on the market. There are a couple of eager buyers, so I'm hopeful it will be sold in the next week or two. The business has already been sold. Thankfully, one of our clients wanted to expand and I accepted the offer last week. Settlement will take place in about a month. You always hear about divorce, but it is already a pain in the butt. Where I live, you have to be separated for 12 months and 1 day before you can file for divorce. Then it takes 4 months before it goes through. And that's only if it's finalized. I don't plan on having anything left of our joint possessions left to settle. And as long as she continues to sign the sales contracts, it will make my life a lot easier to move on. Her way of thinking is different, though. My son has only spoken to her once and apparently it was not a nice phone call. To be clear, my children are grown adults with children of their own. I told him it will take time, but she is still his mother and she was a good one. Don't let her decision destroy our relationship with her. My daughter, on the other hand, has been talking to her throughout. She's ashamed of what her mother did, but has been supporting her through the breakup. My daughter is a very honest person who tells it like it is and is giving her mother the warts and all repercussions of what she did. My soon-to-be ex-wife, however, is deluded enough to think that I will get over it and forgive her. She thinks that all the years we have been together will be enough to make me change my mind. When she came over to sign the real estate contract and told me that I will change my mind, that I still love her and she will be a better wife when I do, then we will still grow old together and have a wonderful life with this as a speed bump in our marriage that we will both get over. I was gobsmacked. I just looked at her and said she was nuts to think any of that. She lied and cheated in the worst way. She had another man inside of her. She sucked another man's personal parts while his own wife watched. How the hell would I even want to touch her again? She said she knew she shouldn't have gone through with it. She didn't know what she was thinking. It wasn't even that good. I told her to shut up, and I didn't want to hear it if she enjoyed it or not. The point is, she effing did it. I told her we have zero hope of reconciliation. I want nothing to do with her and I'm looking forward to getting on with my life without her. I think she's in massive denial about what is happening and she no longer has any control over my actions or is entitled to her scheming and cheating under the loving marriage. Her actions is why this is happening. She knew this before she did what she did, so she can't be so naive to think it's not happening because it is. The funny thing is that I'm getting a fair amount of attention from other women now. I am certainly not interested in having anything to do with women at this time, but it's nice to know that when I do, I will have plenty of options. The soon-to-be ex-wife even got angry that women we know have been over to visit and bring me dinner just to talk. Of course, she told me she wants to get it out of my system and she will be waiting. I mean, seriously, how left up is she? The only thing I want out of my system is her emotions are still a major factor. Hate, anger, disgust. The feeling of loss, betrayal and sadness. I'm a strong man, and I will deal with them. My goal now is to focus on getting rid of any financial entanglement with my wife and get on with my life. Final update, full story and updates in my profile, but a quick recap. Soon-to-be ex-wife cheated after 33 years, married with a couple, got busted by her own sister and she was forced to confess to me. Anyway, 3 months down the track and I moved things very quickly. Business was sold, houses sold, legally separated, waiting for the divorce. Waiting period. But for all intents and purposes, I have separated all our joint assets and are starting on their own in my new life. I would never have thought that I would be where I am today. 3 months ago, I had the life I wanted: a loving wife, self-employed, great family and friends, nice home. I was looking forward to having my wife with me for the rest of our lives. Then my soon-to-be ex-wife screwed it all up for her and for her family by lying, cheating, and being disloyal. We had our problems like every long-term couple, but we always stayed true to each other. When she got caught, it destroyed me. The loss of our lives together was devastating, and I could not fathom why she did this. But this is where my life changed for me. It was not what I wanted, but was decided for me by my cheating wife. I'm a pragmatic man who has always had a strong family values, and this has made the transition to where I am now easy for me. I have made the decision to not let my feelings make me wallow in self-pity and refuse to act the victim. It gets you nowhere. With the sale of my family home and the business, after splitting everything equally with the soon-to-be ex-wife, I had enough to buy 2 small units near my grandchildren. My son and daughter live in different states with their partners and kids. I did this because I want my own space. But be close enough to visit. I'm still working. As a previous business competitor offered me a part-time role which I've taken up and still gives me a lot of free time to start enjoying life again. There was a couple of weeks that I didn't have anything to do, so I jumped on the bike and went riding. No destination. Just stopped for coffee and sightseeing. Stopped at pubs at night and enjoyed a couple of drinks before heading off the next day. What has surprised me is how the whole casual relationship scene with women is, and I must say I'm liking it. Hooked up with a couple of women over the 2 weeks with no expectations, just sex and fun with no emotional baggage. I'm surprised how well I'm feeling. A few people have asked me if I ever contacted the couples that my wife cheated with. No, I see no need. Nor do I have any desire to. It was my soon-to-be ex-wife's decision to cheat on me, not theirs. I want no contact with them. They mean nothing to me. Honestly, the best revenge against the cheating partner is a display of apathy. And just get on with your own life. Sure, you still think about what happened, but life goes on. Concentrate on yourself. Why should you be? Ex-wife is apparently still deluded and thinks that once I calm down and get sick of not having her there, I will take her back. I've told her in no uncertain terms that our marriage is over with no chance of reconciliation. I also told her I no longer care what the F she does or who she does. It no longer has anything to do with me, just as whatever I do no longer has anything to do with her. My daughter told me that her mother is still in denial and is very sad and embarrassed for what she did, and she wants her to convince me to take her back. I told my daughter that will never happen as she is only sad and embarrassed because she got caught and I followed through with leaving her. Life is certainly different than I expected, but I am really looking forward to the future now. This happened many years ago. So if it's not allowed on this sub, I understand. I just need a place to write it out. Having never really told the full story before, if allowed, it may come in many parts to keep the length from being overwhelming. This will be part 1 because this is the first time she cheated. And it's kind of a long story. I was married for 10 years the first time I got married young and was very happy to do so. About a year in, my wife Jo dropped any facade she had and went full-blown into the eating disorder. She'd been nursing her whole life. Knowing what I know now, they were huge signs of it that I didn't see. She spent 9 years yo-yoing her weight. She'd get up to 130 pounds, then down to 90 pounds, up to 150 pounds, down to 80 pounds. This went on for 6 years of our marriage before. At year 6, she began to be hospitalized every other month to be stabilized so she wouldn't die. She finally got to a point where around year 8 she was so sick from malnutrition and down to 75 pounds that she was hospitalized again. And we were finally able to get her into rehab for eating disorders. She spent several months there on top of all that. I was working full-time and we were both going to school full-time. Throughout all of this, I was a doting and supportive husband. We were married, after all, and that was through sickness and health until death do us part. Apparently that was only a one-way street. I did not cope well with this. We had always gotten drunk together, smoked pot and took pills. All of that was done recreationally. However, around year 7 I hurt my back and got some painkillers and I began taking them every day. They became my way to cope while she was in her rehab. I was coping with pills to help me sleep from the loneliness, stress and pain of it all. When she returned, she wasn't the same person. She would sleep from 9 p.m. until 1 p.m., wake up for the afternoon and evening, then go back to bed at 9 every day. She was severely depressed and the stress was getting to me from the time she got home in September of year 8 until May of year 9. This was scheduled in May. This stress of work, school, and this hell of a life finally destroyed me. I broke and told her I had a problem and I went to rehab. I had to start doing my own therapy and going to my own doctor's appointments. I'm happy to say I have been clean since then, although I still drank for almost a year after I got clean from pills. The thing is, I had neglected myself for 9 years while tending to her and she didn't like it at all that I had to start focusing on myself. At least a little bit. She began to get angry for me, having to go to counseling or the doctor or any meeting I attended. Eventually, we decided that we needed to move to get away from both of our major triggers, my dealers and her mom. A year after she got out of rehab in September, we moved to my hometown. When we got there, we were having issues, but we're still working towards our mutual goals. We both got jobs easily, though, and she tried to say I didn't need to find any help with my issues because we were away from my triggers. But she still needed to get help. It became a fight. Then December happened. The beginning, it started small. First, she told me that her manager at work kept complimenting her on how pretty she was. He told her he liked that she didn't have to wear makeup and that she was naturally pretty, unlike his wife, who had to take it on like a clown. This went on for a few weeks. Then one night she was getting off work and getting ready to walk to the gym, when he saw her as he was leaving and offered her a ride. She accepted. When he got to the gym, they talked for a minute, then asked for a hug, which she said yes to. After the hug, he kissed her. According to her, she automatically pulled away. He apologized and she got out. She told me about it as soon as she got home. I had no reason to be mad at her for this because based on her story, she did nothing wrong. Sure, it shows a lack of judgment by accepting a hug from your boss who is always complimenting you on your beauty. But I believed her when she said she didn't invite the kiss. The thing is, she said she did feel an adrenaline rush when he kissed her. I should have seen that for the red flag that it was, but I didn't. That happened in the beginning of December, and for the rest of the month, she would politely refuse rides from him. I didn't even need to insist. She told me she was going to do so and then did. As far as I could see, there was no reason not to trust her. Boy, was I wrong. The whole time this was happening, one of my best friends, Jay, who I hadn't seen for 5 to 6 years, had begun making plans to come to town for Christmas. He had spent the intervening time in a very controlling relationship and wasn't allowed to see friends not approved of by his ex. They had broken up and he had gotten custody of their daughter. He wanted to meet his family because that is what we were. When I say he was one of my best friends, I am not exaggerating. He and a couple other people are my siblings. They aren't friends. They're my brothers and sisters. And I am closer to them than I am my blood family. I call two of their parents mom. The fact I hadn't seen Jay in so long had broken my heart, especially since I had gone to where he lived to see him. And he didn't come to see me because of his ex. I was ecstatic to see him. The plans were made, and on Christmas Eve I was to drive 2 hours to get him from the town his sister dropped him off in. Then we drove back home. Joe had to work, so it would be just Jay and I catching up and riding with his daughter. So that's what we did. We talked to his daughter and played card games with her until she slept, which didn't take long as it was late. And they'd been in a car for several hours. We spent the next 2 hours talking about life and love and pain and heartbreak. He told me about his relationship with his ex. I told him about the problems I was having with Joe. I even told him about scummy manager. It was like old times, except now I had a badass needs to share life with. In the middle of it, I got a text from my mom asking why Joe was crying. I had no idea and asked how she knew that my mom's friend worked for Joe and saw her run into the bathroom crying. I had an idea of why I wasn't sure, but I told Jay what was going on and what I thought. We commiserated until we got home. When we got there, we went to pick up Joe from the gym where he had gone after work. Exercise bulimia. She exercised 2 hours every day, usually running 12 miles a day. And my fear was confirmed. She'd been let go from her job. It was sad, but we moved on. Jay and his daughter had been staying with another friend of ours, as Joe and I lived with my parents at the time. We saw them when we could and enjoyed getting to know his daughter. We enjoyed Christmas with Jay's host family and moved into New Year's Eve, the night before New Year's Eve. One of my other friends had a party, but the party was a bring your whole family. Put the kids to bed and have adult time party. Some of us got really, really drunk. This includes Joe, Jay, and I. During the party, things were really weird. I thought I kept hearing Joe make weird comments, but was pretty drunk. I didn't trust my perception on this. At one point, I had to go to the bathroom. It felt like something was holding the door closed. I pushed on it. It gave, but as I tried to walk in, Joe comes out from behind the door and tries to get me to go somewhere with her. I told her I had to pee. Went in and shut the door. That's when I see Jay behind the door. I drunkenly say, "Hi, Jay, what's up?" As I go to pee and he just says, "You really need to talk to your wife," and walks out of the bathroom. When I was done, I asked her what that was all about. She said she was asking him for advice on our marriage. It hurt me, but I was too drunk to care or think logically about it. All three of us went to sleep in the living room of Party House that night after the party. The next morning I woke up pretty early and I was hung over badly. I woke up Joe and told her I needed to go home to sleep in a real bed. Asked if she was coming. She said she just wanted to sleep and was staying still, not thinking right. I said okay and walked a few blocks to my parents' house. I went back to sleep immediately. I was woken up a few hours later by Joe Jay and his daughter coming into the room and jumping on me for the next few hours. We sat in my room watching movies and TV shows and just generally having a good time. I did catch a few weird things happening between the two of them, though. At one point I thought I saw Jay put his hand high up on the inside of her thigh, out of the corner of my eye. When I looked, he had moved it off of her completely. I didn't know if I was imagining it or not. I was getting suspicious of them, especially after finally thinking about the bathroom incident, but nothing concrete. Then my mom asked me to go to the store for her. I asked if they wanted to go, but they both said no. My niece, on the other hand, said yes. So I thought, hey, some uncle-niece bonding time, and took her with me. Plus, I also thought I'd see if I could catch them in the act. The girl and I went to Walmart and got what my mom wanted, and I bought the girl a gift. We went back to the house and we went inside. When we pulled up, I could see them in the window, moving really quickly. Over the time I could look, nothing was amiss. I sat there stewing for a couple hours and I hatched my plan somehow. I can't remember exactly. I think I said I forgot I wanted something. I let them know I need to leave again and telling them I'd be back. Since it was later in the evening by this point, his daughter was asleep, so I didn't need to take her, nor would I have. She wasn't where we lived. My bedroom window looked out onto the driveway. So to always know when I came back, I'd never be able to catch them doing anything if they could see every time I came home. I had to sneak up on them when I left. I drove a small bit away like I was leaving, but instead pulled over a couple of blocks away and walked back. I went back to the house, and because you could hear the front fence from my room, whether the window was shut or not, I went to the back gate and went into the yard. I walked to the front and stood in the shadows outside my bedroom window, seeing if I could see anything. I definitely did. They looked like they were wrestling, and although they were fully clothed, you could tell it wasn't just playing. I watched for a few seconds to make sure I really didn't misunderstand the situation, but he put his hands on her in places I'm not going to mention, and then kissed her deeply. They were doing this on the floor as to not disturb the kid on the bed, sleeping. I was pissed. I walked into the house, into my bedroom. I opened the door to their shocked surprise. They pushed off of each other and they tried to say they were just playing around and fell off the bed. When I said I saw everything from the window, including the kiss, I stepped over them both, grabbed the money from our little safe, resisted the urge to kick him in their grave faces as they wouldn't shut up about how sorry they were, said a few choice words and walked out. They tried to come after me, but because I had parked to come in the back gate and they didn't know that they went out the front door to look for me. That night I got a hotel room. Joe kept blowing up my phone and I finally answered and told her to quit calling. I wasn't coming home. They apparently stayed in my parents' house, which after finding out what happened my parents were not happy with, while I left in luxury and my hotel crying my eyes out and raging to myself. New Year's Eve. The next day I texted the host of the party, LL, to let her know what happened. She commiserated with me and said Jay was supposed to be coming over later, and we talked later. Joe called me again and told me that she was sorry. For the umpteenth time, I was having none of it. Sometime in here she told me that she had gotten a ride from her boss the night he fired her and he had kissed her again, and that she had liked the adrenaline rush. She said she liked it and went looking for it again, but now didn't like the outcome. I told her to leave me alone for a while and we'd talk later that night. I went to Al's house to talk, but on the way there, Joe and Jay saw me as they were walking to the gym. Can't let your marriage falling apart stop you from gym time, people, and tried to get me to stop. I rolled down my window and told them to leave me alone, but they kept standing in front of the truck to get me to stop. When I would, they'd walk to me to get me to roll down the window, and I'd try to go again, rinse and repeat. I rolled down my window again and told them to let me go. I wasn't in the mood to talk and I wasn't getting madder than I already was. Jay just stood in front of my truck, so I got out. I yelled at him for a minute before he went to give me a hug and apologize. I snapped. I shot in a double leg, and somewhere in the melee of our scramble, I ended up on his back. I stuck in a sleeper hold and pushed his face into the snow. Joe is screaming for me to stop while I'm trying to choke the life out of this guy who used to be my brother before she finally started trying to pull me off him. I told him to leave me alone, let go, got back in the truck and left. I went to Elle's house and told her what happened. That was the last time I saw Jay before he left. Aftermath. On New Year's Day, I talked to Joe. I couldn't stay in the hotel very long due to money, and she had nowhere to go but back home to her mom. Neither of us wanted to give up the marriage, or so we thought, but started to reconcile. And that reconciliation. She told me everything that happened. After I left to go home, Al and her husband went out for breakfast with their kid and asked Jay if they could take her daughter. He said yes, and that left Joe and Jay alone together. They had sex, but according to both of them, I talked to Jay a few months later. But that's the part of another story. It wasn't much of a good time. He literally one pump jumped her. She said the sex wasn't the good part. It was the adrenaline she got from that new and exciting feeling. She said that after her boss kissed her the second time, she started craving the rush. They had sex on his couch. That was not long before Jay left, and I told Ella what happened. She was pissed and hasn't talked to Jay since. Eventually, Jay left, and we began to work on our marriage to see if we could fix the broken parts. She was still insistent I not get therapy. Too bad for her. I was all ready and we hadn't had sex for a couple of months before she cheated. and that never happened again. Less than 2 weeks after she cheated, she made plans to go back and see her mom. She left the day before my birthday, despite me begging her to wait. She wouldn't. As we were driving to the airport, or drive to get there, she gets a text that I look at before that text. We never hid our phones from each other. If I got a text, she'd read it and hand it to me. I do the same. I did so this time. And she got angry. The contents were probably the reason it turns out she had reconnected with an old boyfriend from high school. That text message. Maybe I should bring my vibrators when I rightfully asked what the heck that was all about. It devolved into a fight about me looking at her text, despite this never having been a problem before. We spent the last bit before we get to the airport fighting. When we get there, we angrily say goodbyes. And I love you. And she leaves. She spent the whole trip cheating on me with said ex-boyfriend. She tried to keep it a secret by saying they were just hanging out. But when they are just hanging out and she won't text me for 4 hours, it's kind of telling. Why let her come back? I'll never know. Probably because of the phone call. Not long before her trip is supposed to end. Almost a month later, she calls me crying. She has happy news. She says she's pregnant. At the time, I hadn't put together that I couldn't possibly be the father. So I let her come home and we resolved to put everything behind us to raise the baby. We went to the first checkup, and that's when I discovered there was no way I was the dad wise. It was impossible. I was not happy with his development and let him know he was going to be a dad again. He didn't believe me. It was a moot point anyway. Less than a month later, she lost the baby at about 10 weeks. That's when the marriage really went downhill. Mala 32 cheating fiancé. Female 31. Let me start from the beginning here. Yesterday I met my fiancé at our wedding venue for a 4-month-out meeting to finalize details. We drove to the venue separately because she was leaving straight from work towards the end of the meeting. She let me know that her friend was dropping off a rental car and needed a ride home and asked if it would be okay. I said yes, thinking nothing of it, as it wasn't that far from her home. And I know her friend well. I get home and try to get in touch with her for the next 3 hours. No answer. At approximately the 130 mark, I texted her friend and asked if she had made it to her. Okay. I was very worried. My fiancé ends up coming home and says, "Sorry, it took longer than I expected." She hung out with her friend for a bit before leaving. Okay, no biggie. Just let me know next time, please. Her friend gets back to me a few minutes later and says, "Sorry, I couldn't make it to the venue. Didn't see your fiancé tonight." I asked her why she would say this, and she said she didn't know. She can't control it, her friend says, and walked outside. I'm sketched out F by this point. I have never done this. But I looked at her phone records. Yes, I did. And don't regret it. I saw that when she went outside, she called her friend that had texted me right after she went outside. I also saw an hour-long call with a number I didn't know on the way to the venue. I asked her what rental place they went to and multiple other questions. She had quick answers and they seemed legit. I thought, maybe I'm crazy here. I need to chill and sleep on it. This morning I asked her to please see the text from her friend, asking her to pick her up, and I would apologize for questioning her the previous night. She said no. I said when I caught up to you yesterday on the way to the venue, I saw you were on the phone. Who was that? She said, that's the friend I picked up later on. That's when I knew for a fact she was lying. I said I looked at her phone records and knew that wasn't true. She then changed her story to say, I needed to meet up with a coworker to discuss a patient who is a coworker. And why couldn't you discuss that over the phone? I need to show him the techniques in person. His name is Michael. Okay, I'm sketched out beyond belief at this point. We never lied to each other. I asked to see the text with Michael. She said she wouldn't let me see. I said, why not? If there's nothing to hide. Are you having an affair? Do you not want to be together anymore? She pauses and proceeds to tell me all the things that are wrong with me. I work too much. I don't spend enough time with her. Don't listen. I'm astonished at this point. All of this is news to me. I put 2 and 2 together at this point. I know something sketchy is going on. I again asked to see the texts. It took about half an hour of convincing to see these texts. And they were crazy sexual in nature and talking a lot of crap about me. Also, how she wanted to be with him, and how they are essentially in love. She started this job 1.5 months ago. He is a coworker. He is also 15 to 20 years older and divorced with multiple kids. I've been financially supporting her for the last few months as she got back on her feet and was working extra so she wouldn't have to pick up a part-time job. We owned a house which we both live in and 3 dogs and a horse. Sorry for the novel. I'm beside myself right now. I did not see this coming and we were going to get married in 4 months. Any advice would help. Update as an update. I was finally able to sit down with her tonight and go over this again. She came in trying to blame me for what she did, trying to justify the cheating and lying as a direct result of my lack of communication and listening. She said she wouldn't have had to start talking to this guy if I had been listening better. I spend too much time in the office working and don't dedicate enough time to her. I tried to explain that I was putting in extra hours to try and support her and the family financially while she was struggling so she wouldn't have to get a part-time job. She said she would have rather gotten a part-time job, which makes no sense to me. She was under the impression that because this was short-lived, 1 week, she says, and they only made out once that we could move past this. When I brought up the text where she was trashing me and talking sexual with him, she deflected hard and I got nowhere with that. I told her that I'm not the reason that this is happening. She went too far and should have communicated with me or thought about the implications first, that I can never trust her again. And this is all because of her actions or that she wants to try and justify this is my fault is up to her. At the end of this part, I got a bit calmer. I said, listen, we just really need to figure out the house we own jointly and the 3 dogs. We came to the conclusion that either I stay and buy her out or we sell and get new places. The dogs, one of us will get one, the other 2 to be determined. So that's where this left off tonight. And we'll continue to keep you all posted on progress. Curious what you all would do about the house. Financially, I can support it alone, but it is nearly 3,000 square feet and 5 acres of land which was bought solely to have her horse. She is taking the horse when she leaves and boarding in a barn. Well, I'm so sorry. I can't fathom why she would be looking at wedding venues with you. She thinks there's so much wrong with you. I'm sorry. She gaslit you like that and made it seem like it was all your fault. It absolutely isn't your fault. She should have communicated with you about how she was feeling rather than looking outside of the relationship for some sort of justification. If she wasn't happy in the relationship, she should have left and not taken it to the point of looking for venues with a fiancé. She finds endless flaws in second update. Day 3 I was able to sit down and have a 3-hour conversation with her tonight. We talked about our relationship and what led to what occurred. It started with her telling me what I did wrong in our relationship. Lack of communication, spending too much time working on my phone. I don't disagree with any of these things. My mindset behind working so much was to support of our family. I run an e-commerce business on the side and I'm a one-man customer service center. And deals happen 24 hours a day. I'm never not on the clock. I could have certainly been better about setting my phone aside and responded to people the next day. The lack of communication was on both ends. And a prime example of this is the fact that I was unaware she was unhappy with any of this. It was never communicated to me. She said she felt I would have gotten upset and she told me, but never gave me the chance to work on it. I'm not a perfect person by any means and many times I do or say things that are misinterpreted by her as rude. An example of this is a week or 2 ago I was trying to help her with a budget, with her financial problems to try to set up a plan to get her on track. To note I work in the financial industry and do this for clients all the time. So I had mentioned that she owed me maybe $1,000 and she would get that back to me next paycheck. I said something like, I think it's a little bit more than that. Let's go through the transfers I have made to her joint account. It ended up being over $5,000. My purposes are doing this was not to make her feel bad, but to realize how much I've been contributing. She took this as me trying to humiliate her was just trying to help, and maybe my timing was off. She told me I have been too focused on money lately, but I was only trying to make sure we were going to be okay. We still had quite a bit to pay for the wedding, and my budgeting mentality was on overload, trying to make sure we had enough. The fact that she keeps trying to justify what she did by attributing this as a direct correlation to my flaws really bothers me. She keeps telling me that she is surprised. I would throw away 7 years of relationship like this. I keep having to remind her that I didn't throw it away. She did with her actions. She told me that I told too many people too quickly and we could have resolved all of this between us. She also said that she wouldn't have had to talk with someone else if I was a better listener or a communicator. I have finally determined the extent of the affair, which I actually believe based on the text that I read. They began talking 1 or 2 weeks before via text. I don't know if they had met up before outside of work, but this time around he had asked her to the park to play basketball and talk. She met up with him and ended up making out. I truly believe it didn't go further than this yet, but it would have in the near future, I am sure. She says he is not her boyfriend. She also took off tonight. I have no idea where she is at. Assuming with him or a girlfriend, it is an awkward living situation, but I am hoping this resolves in the near term. I do think she wants me to get back with her and try to repair that. I think that the main issue was a lack of communication that manifested for a long time. We got into a routine, lived our boring, simple life, and meanwhile this problem was never discussed and grew over time. She acted out instead of talking to me and also lied to my face, talked a lot of crap about me behind my back. She can be very sneaky and I don't think I can fully trust her again. Obviously this would be the easiest thing to do, but I don't think I would ever truly be happy. Understanding the root cause has helped me feel better. If nothing else, it will allow me to address my personality flaws, communication issues, and see things from another perspective. I started hitting the gym today and will keep a routine going. I also plan on picking back up and studying for my CFP designation. I took the week off of work to focus on my mental health. Today, I called the wedding venue and officially canceled the date. We were able to get some money back, but lost a bit, unless the date can be resold to another couple. Unlikely. I also spoke with her parents again to keep them apprised. They're not far away and I'm sure are worried sick. I continue to let them know everything is fine and calm and they don't need to worry about their daughter. I did some research and with interest rates where they are today, I will not be able to find a comparable house for the mortgage. I pay for this. Can barely find an apartment for less nowadays. I think my best option is to try and buy out her share and have her find an apartment. She seems agreeable at this time. We will have an appraiser out to assess the value and see what half of the equity would be and if that is doable for me. My question to you all are, does this change your mind at all about the situation? Am I handling this properly? If not, what should I be doing different? The audacity. She had to tell you that she couldn't believe you would be willing to throw away the relationship when she was the one cheating on you. What the heck? From what she keeps saying, it seems like she's not willing to take responsibility for her actions. It sounds like she doesn't feel remorse for cheating on you with this guy. Perhaps she needs to deal with her own self and issues really go inwards before trying to work on this relationship with you. If she doesn't, who's to say something like this wouldn't happen again, or she'd just blame me for the next thing? LP, there's a new update. It's been nearly a month since this whole situation went down. Well, an update has been a very busy, emotional, and eventful month. So I'm not going to lie. The few days after this happened to me, I was a pathetic mess groveling to get back with this cheating posse. It's embarrassing to admit, but it happened. And it was all part of the process of moving on while in this vulnerable state. I tried everything. I could do things right to make things better, but nothing worked. I was actually told that she had to make a decision, me or him, and she did the right thing choosing him. I think that's when I woke up and realized I had let my self-worth go down the drain and I needed to take a step back and really focus on me and what was best for me. It is hard after 7 years of doing everything for someone else to focus on your own needs. But that's exactly what I've been doing since I moved our joint savings accounts to my individual checking account. I did the math of what was owed to me and transferred half of the balance back to the joint account for her to take. I have been working out every day since this happened. It makes me feel good to not only improve how I look, but helps me continue to think clearly. I've got suit shopping for a massage. I with friends and family. Not only was this relationship isolating of my friends and family, which should have been a huge red flag, but it never did anything for myself. Buying clothes is just not something I would do. I was always worried about providing for my significant other and animals. I've been seeing a therapist for the first time in my life on a weekly basis. It helps me talk things out, my decision making. It is something I will probably continue to do after the situation resolves. Just continue to improve myself. Now for the bigger items. I'm still living in the house with the ex. She is sleeping in the guest bedroom and we are at a point where the only communication is, "Did you feed the dogs?" I think she is a terrible person and no matter what I say in her mind, this is my fault. To accuse someone of being a bad communicator and then using that as an excuse to then not communicate her feelings to me and she is her being a hypocrite and an easy out in her delusional mind. I stopped bothering trying to reason with her because she is unreasonable. I have been keeping the ball rolling with listing our house for sale. I contacted an agent, had them come and was happy with the proposed sale price. She then requested a contact to other agents and get their opinions, one of which was recommended by her friend. Yes, I made all the calls, set up all the appointments and met with these people. This is how the relationship always was. And even though it's not fair, I have been willing to do it all to get the hell out of here. After meeting with all three, we ended up going with the first agent. Pictures were taken on Sunday and the house was listed for sale Sunday night. Open house next Saturday are getting a lot of attention on the real estate sites. She will be taking the horse to a barn somewhere to be determined. I had a conversation about the dogs and offered to take one or none. She said she would take all three of them to keep them together. They're a happy bunch, and I don't want to fight over taking one, if that will break them up. It also selfishly allows me to pursue a clean start. Unexpectedly, I met someone about a week ago that I've been spending quite a bit of time with. I have no false expectations here, but I'm enjoying hanging out with her. She's been through a similar situation in the past and has been helping me through this. It's really eye-opening, speaking with a kind, thoughtful, and independent woman. It makes me realize what an narcissist my ex was: completely self-centered, dependent, and manipulative. I should have listened to the warnings from family and friends long ago. I definitely fell into the trap of being in a simple routine. I wasn't enjoying life. It was just an easy situation to be in. Nice house, lots of land, great animals. Didn't want to rock the boat, so I just continued on. You don't really realize this until you take a step back and truly reflect. Some might say it was a wasted time, but I am really using this as a learning experience. I will not ignore red flags in the future. I will not fall into a simplicity trap. I will continue to maintain relationships with my friends and family. I just want to end this with a huge shout out to everyone on here that commented on my original post. I posted on Reddit because I had no idea what to do. Those of you that took the time to try and help a complete stranger on Reddit are amazing. I read every single comment and they all helped me get to where I am now. I'm looking forward to the next chapter of my life,